Recording in progress.
Hey, welcome to the November 26th Qathet Regional District Board meeting. Want to recognize we're holding the meeting on the traditional territory of the Tla'amin Nation. I apologize for the late start. We had a committee of the whole prior to this that just went longer than we had anticipated. So here we are trying to get through this one in a relatively quick fashion. So approval of agenda, corporate officer, there are some changes, is that correct?
Oh, yes, thank you, Chair. The Committee of the Whole moved their correspondence dated November 14th, 2025 from George Anderson regarding the Conventional Reliance Act. And that was going to be added with item 15.1, just for full consideration.
Okay, so with those changes to the agenda, we have approval. Director Lennox, Director Gisborne, thank you. All in favor? Carries unanimously. Meetings of the inaugural regional board meeting, November 12th, 2025. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, somebody like to move those? McCormick and Fall. All in favor? None opposed. Motion carries. We have no delegations. We have no unfinished business. We have two items of correspondence, of which one has already been pulled for business arising. Don't know if anybody wants to pull the other one. If I'm not seeing any hands, we'll move on to item 7.1. Would somebody like to?
So moved.
Thank you, Director Fall and Director McCormick. Any discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Very unanimous. Awesome. Chair's report. Actually pretty short this month. On November 7th, I met with ICE-T, which is Islands Coastal Economic Trust. We approved a few projects, but the focus of the meeting was how we can persuade the provincial government to provide ICE-T with some one-time funding that can be invested and keep the program viable for years. It's something we've been trying to do for quite some time now, and members of this board will recall a few UBCMs ago, we had a meeting with the Minister of what was called JEDI at that time, Jobs, Economic Development, and Innovation. So we're still plugging away at it. We did get a $10 million, I guess, grant you would refer to it as, to keep us going for a little while, but that's not going to keep us around for generations to come, which is what we would love to eventually get to. On November 11th, I was honored to take part in the wreath laying ceremony at the Cenotaph outside Whitehall for Remembrance Day. I was really pleased the weather agreed with us and many attendees were there for this solemn occasion. November 14th, I had a rare second meeting with ICE-T, again about the long-term funding for the program, and we had a speaker in, a representative from the ministry, talking about draft engagement plan for the new legislation for ICE-T. So we are, fingers are crossed that hopefully we'll have some long-term funding there. And then on the 17th, I had a library trustees meeting. Nothing particular to report other than the fact things are going well, and hopefully the facade will be completed soon, so we can get rid of the scaffolding and people don't get hit in the head by falling debris. That'd be good. Yeah, that would be good. That's all I've got. So we'll go to Director McCormick.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. There were two meetings of qathet tourism. The regular monthly meeting. Pleased to report relations with Sunshine Coast Tourism have greatly improved, and people are getting along very well. So that's a really awesome turn of event. The AGM took place on Monday, and Russ Brewer was reelected as the president. November 11th, I was honored to lay a wreath on behalf of local government at the Remembrance Day ceremony on Texada. On the 13th, the Airport Advisory Committee met, and I was pleased to meet the new airport manager, a fellow named Dwayne Ranta, who is very well qualified and very glad to have him. On the 20th, the Texada Policing and Public Safety Committee, which is not a regional district committee, it's a local island-based committee, they met, and Ryan Toms attended, along with Jesse McDonald, consultant, and they gave a great presentation on the emergency preparedness program, the evacuation plan, and had tons of questions. And it was a really excellent presentation, so thank you very much to Ryan for doing that. And then finally, on the From the 20th to the 22nd, the Rock Island Players put on a fantastic production. It was called The Capper Trap, a comedy. And so I salute all of the actors who were in that production and the director, Daniela Burek, who did an amazing job. That's my report.
Always something fun happening on Texada.
Good stuff. All good stuff.
We'll go up to the screen, Director Fall.
Thank you, Chair. So on October the 8th, there was the Solid Waste Management Plan Advisory Committee. And so they made a recommendation to request staff to look into possibility of increasing the opening hours in the winter, because the summer hours are fine, but the winter hours are reduced more than the use by the public. So our manager of waste management, Jason Cohenhoven, really helped understand how the committee could do that process, and he's looking into it. November the 1st, was the Vancouver Island Regional Library Board carrying on their operations and dealing with the budget issues. And most notable, on last November the 20th, a group came over from the Anglican diocese to deconsecrate the church on Lasqueti. So that was a service to make it not a church. So now the building is a former church, and the Archdiocese has a goal with some of these properties that they are deconsecrating of providing some utility for the community, so community use, but also reconciliation. So, there's been some community discussions. They have their objectives. The community's thinking about what they would like to do, and there may or may not be a role for the QRD. So that's something that may come up in the future, because one possibility is that the QRD could receive the property for, say, $1, and that it might be managed similar to the QRD property. It's right across the road from the Arts Center. So for the people who've been on Lasqueti Island, it's the property right across the road. It's a couple acres, has a church that has parking lot. So that's just in the kind of back of the envelope, idea phase. Nothing in the community said that this will happen, and for sure, before staff would spend more than 5 minutes thinking about it, would have to go through our board. So that's that. But just as a heads up, that will maybe be further discussions on what the community would like and what the church would like, and how that might move forward. That's everything for me. Thanks, Chair.
Great. Thanks, Director Paul. We are pleased to have Director George Dowd, in for our regular Rob Southcott. I was curious if you have anything to report.
Thanks, Chair. I'm only here for a short time, and I haven't done much except enjoy participating. Good to be back in the chair for a few hours.
Oh, good to have you here.
I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Director Gisborne.
Thank you, and wonderful to have you, Director Dowd, here for a good time. Not a long time, but I'll be quick. On October the 24th, I met with the VICC-CSWE, which is the Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities Committee on Solid Waste. Something, I forgot the last part. Mainly, kind of going over the review of what's going on with solid waste management all up and down the coast. And qathet kind of came up on top on a few topics in relation to, the cost recovery for solid waste. Municipal solid waste, we're actually one of the highest tipping fees, but it also kind of stimulated a lot more conversation between the other regional districts getting appropriate cost recovery, or are they relying too heavily on property taxes? So it seems to be stimulating some discussion in the other regions, what we're doing here. And I kind of think that we're being a bit of a leader in this regards, and we might see some other regional districts start kind of moving towards our model, where they say, hey, if you're going to make garbage, you got to be the ones to pay for it. I also got to mention that on October the 24th and the 25th, I had to attend the ghost train on both days at the Paradise Exhibition Park, because my 4-year-old has been going on every single day for 3 weeks about the ghost train. And even when he would wake up in the middle of the night going, the ghost train, the ghost train. So, Rob, if you're watching, no, the ghost train's not happening for another year. But they do such a fantastic job out there. And it's just a wonderful event for the kids. And I just want to tip my hat to them. On the 29th of October, I was with the Historical Society, and we had a meeting with the Tla'amin Executive Council regarding the activities going on at the Historical Society. I don't believe I'm at liberty to discuss all the details about what was discussed there, so I'm just going to leave that, and hopefully there'll be a presentation or something at the regional district in the future. On November the 16th, I attended the Meet the Mayor at the Recreation Complex. I believe I saw Director Doubt there as well. If you didn't see me, it's because I was hiding in the back. It was interesting. There was also kind of an explosion of a toilet in the hallway, and the whole second floor seemed to flood. So, it's good. It's good that I wear gumboots all the time. On November the 17th, we had a PEPS meeting, and it was another wonderful way to meet with the folks out at the Paradise Exhibition Park around the activities that they're doing. And I got to tip my hat to them. They got a really good team of folks out there that are making that park just be absolutely fantastic and making sure that it's moving forward. And with that, I'm sure I missed some things, but we got a meeting we got to get to. Thank you, Chair.
Yep, that's I always appreciate volunteers in the community when they serve in so many different ways. It's always great when people give back. Director Lennox.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Speaking of volunteers, and in no particular order, a bunch of things since our last report. Lund Waterworks Improvement District met with the advisory committee, and even our meeting today is going to help that committee to move ahead. So that was good. They're involved. I was able to attend Remembrance Day, and it's always profound to take that time and stand there and think about, all the sacrifices, both people who served and their families, right? I think about their families a lot. So that was good. Good weather. Northside Volunteer Fire Department, we saw the chief's report there last month, and I was verklempt. I couldn't even speak because I wasn't aware that actually Chief Brown was retiring. So I was a little bit caught off guard, and it choked me up because that guy is like the ultimate example of a volunteer, right? I started in that department back when those fire halls were falling down on themselves, rat infested, old trucks. I mean, it's amazing what that person and everybody involved and our staff have done over the past couple of decades to bring it into a department that I'm super proud of. Funny, our last board meeting, it was raining and dark. I'm on my way back to Lund, and I looked at my clock and I said, "Oh, fire practice is starting." And we had just, if you remembered, thank you to everybody, just paid for our fire truck, if you remember, our new fire truck. So I decided I'm going to stop in. So I stopped at the hall, and it was a good timing, and got a good review of the fire truck. I worked out of that hall, so I got my nose into everything, and it was great to have a tour. Great asset. There's really, if you get a chance to check out your fire apparatus and ask some questions, big improvements compared to some of our old equipment. Things like ergonomic ladder assemblies that'll actually lower these large heavy duty ladders to a point where you're not going to wreck your back. So things like that, and the improvements are good. And just meeting with that crew and just, taking some questions. Didn't get into operations, right? But had a great conversation. Those folks were super happy to have that chat. And we look forward to Chief Perot taking over the reins, and he's been there for many, many years, and that's a solid replacement. I met with MP Aaron Gunn, I can't remember which weekend, and I'm going to meet again with him on the 30th, coming up quick here. Really what I did was I challenged our MP to come to Lund because he'd never been up here. So I met him at UBCM, and to his credit, he took me up on it. So he came up for a couple hours in the morning on a Sunday morning. We went to the bakery, met some constituents where they were able to ask him some questions, but my wife said that I pretty much talked the entire time, which is not surprising, but I tried to fit in all of the different things federally that are affecting Area A. Our marine facility in Lund is condemned, the dock in Lund, the main wharf head. So those are the types of things we need our MP to be advocating for. So I think it was educational for him to see that, really reinforcing things like support for the Canada grant that's in play for the Lund Waterworks Improvement District, and advocating again for different things like fisheries, etc. And also doing a little education about what it means to live in an area with a Treaty First Nation. And I think our MP needs to learn a little bit more about that. He actually asked me a lot of pertinent questions, and I got to give him credit for that. So, I mean, I could go on and on about that, but I'm going to meet and continue that work with him. I met with, I was in Vancouver last week, and I happened to meet with the SIF deck. That's the Savory Island Fire detection group that's looking at SenseNet and the provision of those services over there. That's their project. It's not our project. And to their credit, they're moving very quickly. I sent you guys a little bit of an update recently from Peter, and so that we can keep track and we're sort of ready to respond if and when they need us to. So we'll continue to monitor that. There are some cameras up. I did help them to ask the right people to get some of the remote cameras up to work on that system. Was able to swing by the Lund gazebo, and again, thanks to staff and all the work around the EV charging station. I don't know if it's completely functional, but the power is there and the station and everything, so that's a big plus for Lund. And then I just finally I got my second visit to the RRC the other day for an actual dump run, which hadn't really ever done. And I want to give credit to our staff and the operation there. First of all, it was very smooth and efficient. They guided me into which stream. I thought it was construction and demolition, but they saved me a bit of money because they said, no, that's household. And then they actually helped me unload my truck, which I appreciate. So I just wanted to say that facility is working very smoothly, and I was a little bit impressed. So it's good.
Good. Always good to get positive feedback. I think we should, your comments about Chief Brown, I think we should take an opportunity to make a plug for anybody out there who is looking to do volunteer work in the community. You can do a heck of a lot worse than go to your local volunteer fire department.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Director Elliott.
My report is fairly short. November 21st, I attended the Community Action Team Education Subcommittee meeting, and we put out monthly newsletters about what's going on in our community for harm reduction and all of the different things that are being operated within the community for that. We had in attendance at that meeting this time around Mariko, who represents the public health officer, and we had been asking the public health officer for things to put into our newsletter that was from the public health office that could speak to the tried and true information as far as how harm reduction does support overall reduction in deaths and danger to people. And so the public health officer did send out a little thing that will be attached to our next newsletter. So if people are interested in the actual data that supports some of the things that we're doing in our community, that little article will help. So that's one of the things that folks should be keeping an eye out for. I attended the Remembrance Day ceremony like many other people. I did not sit in the dignitaries area this year because my son attended with me for the first time ever. So I was really encouraged that he did that. I went to the Chamber of Commerce meeting on November 10th, and they are initiating plans for their gala in the spring. So they'll be looking for nominees for all the awards that they do through their gala coming out soon. And I think that's all I need to report on today. Thanks.
That's very short. We appreciate it. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have anything they want to pull from the consent agenda? Director Gisborne?
Yeah, the grant to the sorry, However Trail Riders Club. I'd like to pull that. Number 9.
Okay, anything else?
Yeah, and the grant to the Kings, number 3.
Okay, those are all part of one. So we can still move that motion just without those items. Is that correct?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you, Chair.
All right, so thank you, Director Lennox, seconded by Director McCormick. All in favor? Okay, motion carries. So now we're gonna go back and I guess we're gonna discuss
10.5.3.
10.5.3. Kings, $5,000 to Powder River Kings Hockey Club. We need a motion on the table.
I'll make the move the recommendation. So
Director Lennox, Director Gisborne, discussion. Director Gisborne.
Thank you, Chair. I pulled this item because we had a pretty good discussion at the Committee of the Whole, and I wanted to kind of clarify a bit of my position. The first one is Part of the discussion is in relation to, the municipality providing a grant in kind through the waiver of ice fees. And I believe that does have an impact on the operational revenue. But to clarify, this grant is not coming from just the electoral areas, it's coming from general grant and aid. So I concede that point, that this is not a motion that I have objection to on the grounds of it's coming from electoral areas to kind of make up some difference with the municipality. So I'm okay on that amount, on that kind of footing and foundation. I do have some concerns, though, that are we going to keep going down this road, because this is the first time the Kings have made a grant request, and it's for general operating costs. And I know there was some opposition related to the Brain Injury Society for going towards operational costs rather than, towards a specific item. It's really $5,000 is kind of a drop in the bucket for the Kings. So, no, the motion itself is 5,000. The suggested amount was. So, with all that being said, I actually will support the motion, but hesitantly, with being cautious about future grant intake, especially if they go down this route and sell the team, which then becomes a privately owned franchise, and then we give them a grant. It's kind of like providing a grant to a business. So, yeah, I'm a little torn, but I'll go along and I'll support it. Thanks for pulling it or allowing me to pull it so I could unload my conscience.
Brilliant.
So I intended to speak against the future motion that we have coming up around the Brain Injury Society, where we use the argument about operational funding to respectfully deny, because they specifically wrote a letter saying that that's not the case with their application, and so that's a misclassification. And so if we are going to deny them, we should. I was going to read out that section of their letter that talks about that. And so if we're going to approve a grant to the Kings that's operational and then turn around and use that as a basis for denial to the Brain Injury Society when they actually have a project that is not continuing in operational, I don't really like the inconsistency of that message we're sending through our grant programming. I think we need to either do operational funding or not do operational funding, and not pick and choose different groups for doing that with. So I have a bit of an issue with this. If we're going to use that as an argument to deny someone else a grant, how do we approve this one?
Okay, any other comments? Well, anybody else besides Director Gisborne? Okay, Director Gisborne.
Yeah, I'm wondering if maybe we should propose an amendment to remove 4 general operating costs, so that the motion would just say we provide a grant of $5,000 to the Kings Hockey Club Society from general grants and aid service. Just completely eliminate what it's specifically for.
I don't know how that changes what it's
And
being
yeah, it
used.
doesn't really change anything.
It doesn't really change anything, but
They requested it for operational purposes, so.
yeah, and that's where I actually concur with Director Elliott. Myself, I'm not a huge fan of providing grants for operating costs. The one exception I'll make is, of course, to ORUG, because, of course, all their operational costs are trail maintenance and construction. It's like for something tangible, but that's actually the one sticking point I have with providing the grant to the Kings is operating cost. If they'd come back and said, hey, we want $5,000 to put on some event for the community, I'd find that easier. But
Director Fall, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I just want to say I agree with the sentiment that we want to have consistency. Absolutely. I think that's a bit tricky. If we're going to use arguments one way, then we should use them the same way always. In terms of operational costs, I think we could say that, if a group comes to us with a request for operational costs, and it's more of a one-off request, so it's just to get them through an unexpected difficult time, that I think can be justified. If it's on a continued basis, then the best solution for an ongoing support for operational expenses is a contribution service, whereby there's a funding that such as is provided to many other groups like the Lasqueti Community Association from the area that benefits from that. So I think the same argument could be made for different other groups, as Director Elliott has pointed out. I mean, we're low on money, of course, in our general grant and aid, but still, I think we want to be consistent, and I think that's how I would kind of see this myself.
I don't see any other hands. I'm just going to make a couple comments. I don't think that if the money is going to go to operational costs, I think it also is very dependent on, does that beneficiary, what do they offer back to the community? Do they bring financial benefit to the community? Is it widely appreciated by the community? And also, is there the potential for other funding sources out there? So I don't think you can just say, operational and operational is comparing apples to apples. I think there's also other factors that play into it. So in some cases, I would support granting money for operational expenses. In other cases, I don't. It all depends on the circumstances. But seeing no other hands, I think we'll call a question. All in favor? Got 6. Any against? Director Elliott opposed. Motion carries. So what was the next one?
10.5.9.
Okay, we have a recommendation here.
Before I move the motion, can I ask a question?
Sure.
How much money is available left in the general grants and aid service? I guess if this motion passes, as is.
Ms. Greenan?
Thank you, Chair. So the motion that we're talking about then is, let me make sure I've got the right one here.
6,000, number 9, 6,385.63.
So if that one passes from the general grants and aid for the Trail Riders Club, there is no money in the general grants and aid.
So we have another motion coming up of $10,992 for Foundry. So does that mean there's no money for them either?
Sorry. Okay.
Sorry. That's a good.
I've got to take that out.
Well, so I would presume then there's $10,992 left in.
There's 10,000. So before the 6,385.63, there's $17,377.90.
Okay, and how much is left in Area B's grant and aid?
There is $597.77 left in Area B's grant and aid.
Okay, in that case, I will move the motion, provide the grant from general grant and aid of $6,385, and I will also move a subsequent motion of $597.97 from Area B grant and aid.
All right, let's
We
stick
can
with the
do-
first one.
We could do it at the same time if you.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah, because
The waiting.
waiting, but
I'll move the first one, which is on the agenda.
Do the first
Second of
one.
that.
Okay. And discussion, Directors Gisborne and Elliott.
Yeah, I proposed a higher motion or a higher amount at our committee level. Because this is a nonprofit operating in one of our parks. They're doing a fantastic job, and I don't think they've ever come to us for money in the past. And there was an unfortunate incident, and as we've heard, we are not required to pay the cost, replace the shed. And I asked the assembly, there's a difference between what you have to do and what you feel you morally should do. And myself, I believe in what's going on, not just in the park with trail riders, but also the Agricultural Institute and also therapeutic riding. And I want to send the message that we've got their back. So I am supporting the motion to, what we have left in general grant and aid. And I'm going to put my money where my mouth is and give the remainder of Area B's grant and aid to try and help make up some of the difference. And I'll challenge all other electoral area directors to feel if you want to contribute some of your electoral area grant and aid to try and cover the material cost and the cleanup cost. Not even covering the cost of labor. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so no other hands, we'll call the question, all in favor?
Actually was on your list.
Oh, I'm sorry. You were on the list. Go ahead.
So I'm a little concerned that we whipped through the discussion on the Brain Injury Society when we were making this recommendation, and I kind of missed this ladder till the end. If we go ahead and approve everything as recommended, we actually have no way of reconsidering the Brain Injury Society. So is it okay if I read out the portion of the letter that I think is relevant to our decision before we call the vote on this one, in case people feel differently about reassigning where they think the money should go?
Well, we are only calling the question on the Trail Riders Association. not the
Yes,
other-
my point is that is the last of the money available. And if we approve this, then we can't consider the brain injury for any money at all.
Go ahead, corporate officer.
Sorry, we haven't made a decision on providing Foundry qathet with the 10,992 yet.
Yeah, but this is, okay, fine. I still think that it's relevant because when it comes to the Brain Injury Society and the general grants and aid, I have kind of a preference myself for the health related donations versus the recreation in the out further. And so I just wanted people to hear me out, because the conversation we had at the finance committee basically discounted the Brain Injury Society on a basis that isn't true. And I would like people to hear that before calling the question on the last of what remains of this money.
Procedurally, it is slightly germane because you're talking about the funding pool. So if everybody here agrees, there's no reason that you would have to table the current motion.
To hear
so
me
that's
out.
what I would do. Because you're using the same pool, it would be germane, is my advice.
Okay, all right, so you can speak to it.
Thank you. So after round one of our decisions for grants, the Brain Injury Society wrote us a letter which was attached as page 211 of 260 of that package. And I'm just going to read it out to you. During the board's discussion, which is available online, it was noted that our application was our first request for funding. However, the primary reason cited for denial was that our request was characterized as operational funding, with concern expressed about potential year-over-year requests. We have been providing critical support to the community for 32 years, and this is our first request for funding through QRD. While the fund were intended to support some frontline staff delivering programming, they were tied to a defined initiative, empowering recovery with clear outcomes, milestones, and evaluation measures. The grant was not sought to underwrite the general operating costs of the society, but to ensure that the successful delivery of a specific program and service that advanced community health, cultural vibrancy, and social sustainability in keeping with the QRD's stated objectives. We respectfully request that the board consider the clarification in the context of future applications and provide written guidance on how similar program-based funding requests can be presented so that they are not mischaracterized as ongoing operational support. And so I don't know that everybody read that before saying the same thing they said the first round was they were worried about ongoing operational funding. Or not, but the intention was not ongoing operational funding, but rather to help support a little bit of staff for a fixed project. And so the grounds that we discounted them are untrue in this application case. And so I just wanted people to be aware of that we've already said on the grounds of this, which isn't true, we deny them. And I don't know that that's fair treatment of the Brain Injury Society's project and application. And so we can go ahead and decide this, but then we've hindered our ability to move on that one or split funds in any way.
Okay, thanks for your comments. Hands, Director Bisborn.
Yeah, I recognize that the motion on the floor is specific to the general grant and aid service, and there's no discussion around the Brain Injury Society, and I think they are actually related, because this board has made the decision to set the general grant and aid amount before we get any applications for grants. We didn't used to do that. We used to actually say, hey, we'll get your grant intakes in, and then we set the budget based on how much people are asking for. So I would be very surprised if the amount of grant requests year over year goes down. Seems to keep going up. So every year we run into the same problem that there's only so much water in the pool, and then there's all this demand. When it comes to providing funding to trail riders, they applied in the first intake.
As did the brain injury.
Point of order.
Sorry.
I know some members of the public might not like me saying that, but either way, they've applied in the first intake. It's a unique situation. We've given 5,000 to the Kings. We've given general grant and aid money to all different, a whole bunch of other entities. We do have a upcoming discussion related to Foundry of roughly $11,000. I've got some comments on that one because, as I understand, our policies say, we do not provide grant funding to healthcare facilities. Well, if we go forward and say, yes, we're going to give you a grant of $11,000, that's us saying, well, then we don't consider you a healthcare facility. And then when we get to the hospital district board, we're going to go, well, we don't consider you a healthcare facility. And therefore, no grant funding from the hospital district. That's probably not going to be overly popular, but at the same time, or maybe we could do all of the above. Long story short, the item on the motion specifically in front of us is to support the Trail Riders Club, which, just like brain injury, they haven't come to us in the past and asked for money. We haven't denied them. They've been waiting since the spring, because in the spring, I brought up this issue of, hey, it was free in a regional district park that fell down, crushed the shed, and I think we should give them more. We then referred that to staff, came back, the amount roughly dropped in half, and because, of course, this is a topic that we're discussing, it's now going to be one of the last grants that we approve, and I don't think it's appropriate to claw back funding to the Trail Riders Club because we're concerned about all the other grant funding, especially when they came in on the second intake. So I'm fully prepared to support the motion, and of course, to support a subsequent motion.
Okay, seeing no other hands, I'm going to call the question on the Power of the Trail Riders Club.
You're there. Can I propose an amendment before you call the questions? I would propose to change the motion to 3,385.63 from general grants and aid plus the 500 and whatever that.
A separate motion. Yeah.
Is it a separate one? Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. So never mind that one. This motion to the amount to be 3,385.63, so that we might give a nominal grant to the Brain Injury Society and things as well. And if I get a seconder, I can speak to that.
Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Director McCormick. Go ahead.
Thank you. So while I don't agree that it's entirely fair to the Trail Riders Club, I also don't think it's fair to the Brain Injury Society. And so I would move this amendment to allow room for a better, more fair treatment of the Brain Injury Society and their project. And it is a lot less than what they asked for too. And also recognizing the legitimate request from the Trail Riders Club and trying to support them too as an important agency. And so I would hope that the directors here would support that. And I know it is the last minute, but I don't feel very good about the current proposed motion for the Brain Injury Society's project.
Any other comments? Director Gould.
Yeah, this proposed amendment is less than what was recommended by our staff in the first intake. So if we would have just kept our heads down and passed it then, it would have provided more funding than what the proposed amendment is. And I think that's very disrespectful to the trail riders. Also keeping in mind, Trail Riders hasn't come to request funding for us in the past, and I highly doubt they're going to continue to request funding in the future. Whereas the Brain Injury Society, I don't see any barrier between them putting in an application in the spring. We do first come, first serve. Typically for our grant intakes, we do the spring intake, we do the fall intake. This is a spring intake. Yes, there was a brain injury request on the first intake. We denied it. It's now come back in the second intake. If we want to start cutting down on the grants that are being provided from general grant and aid, so that way we can provide additional funding to grant requests we had in the first intake, then we should claw it back from the second intake applications, which would be the Kings. I believe we're a second round grant intake, and the Foundry. So I believe that we should pass the original motion for the 6,385. I would actually prefer to be higher than that. And if we then wanted to actually claw back some of the second round intakes to support the Brain Injury Society, then we can do that while we determine the Foundry funding, and we could even move a motion to reconsider the King's grant. But because trail riders, it's essentially a one-off grant intake, an actual piece of structure, I don't think we should cut off their knees. Thank you, Chair.
Greenan has a comment.
Thank you, Chair. Through the chair, just wanted to clarify that we did give a grant to the trail riders in 2018.
Ooh. Before my time. Very good information. That was quick. Good.
Okay, seeing no other hand.
We haven't had a grant request in 7 years.
I just wanted to respond, if I could.
Okay.
So like the Trail Riders, the Brain Injury Society is the first round intake. And the reason it's here in the second round was because we gave a reason that wasn't true about their project. And so that's why they came back. They were hoping for us to reconsider because we gave them reasons that were not true, and they clarified what that was about. They've pointed out that they've been in operation for 32 years and have never asked for a grant before, and likely wouldn't ever ask for ongoing operational funding, a grant for that. If they had another project maybe in the future, they might ask for a grant, but that's something different. So I did vote against the King's funding, and partly for this reason. It was within the general grants and aid envelope, and I was trying to make last minute consideration for something that I had wrong when we had this at the committee level. And most of the things that you've brought up about the trail riders are also true of the Brain Injury Society. So, and the Foundry is also a first round applicant, not a second one.
Remember, you're addressing the board.
Oh, you're
Me,
correct.
actually.
My apologies, Chair.
Yeah, I don't remember making those comments.
I'll just sit like this.
Yeah, and so I just wanted to offer up that many of the reasons that were cited by Director Gisborne for not liking this amendment are also true of the Brain Injury Society, which is my entire point. We aren't treating them fairly in this round, nor the previous round. Thank you.
Okay, well, we're gonna call the question on the amendment to change it to 3,385.63. All in favor of the amendment? 2, all opposed, 3, all opposed to the amendment.
Okay, just one, sorry, it's
So
a
we
weighted vote, so let's
Oh,
see.
okay.
Mine's 3 to
Who was
4.
who was in
In favor of the amendment, raise your hands again.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And those opposed to the amendment?
Next, George, in favor.
Dr. Dowd is in favor then of the amendment.
Well, I didn't vote, and I just to explain to everybody, I've been thinking about what I would do. I haven't been involved in this discussion. We're talking about grants that have been discussed numerous times by the board. I haven't been involved in that. Talking about spring, fall applications, talking about reconsidering ones at the previous meeting and bringing up new ones that haven't. I just don't feel qualified to vote because I haven't been part of that give and take.
If you don't raise your hand, it still counts as an affirmative vote.
Then you're in favor of stripping them of their funding.
Director
Absolutely.
Gisborne, this is not a time for discussion. The vote has happened. So, So we have an amended vote now, an amended motion to 3,385.63. Is there any discussion on this?
I just want to say, if anyone wants to actually not vote, they have to leave the room.
This has nothing to do with the motion in front of us, Director Gisborne. Do you have a comment about this motion?
Yes, I think it's insulting.
Okay. It's your right. So we'll call the question, seeing no other hands. All in favor? We have 4 in favor and against. Directors Gisborne and Lennox. Motion carries. Director Gisborne.
I will move that we give $597.97 from Area B grant and aid to the Trail Riders Society for the replacement of their shed.
Seconded by Director Lennox. Any discussion? Director Gisborne.
I believe we should support them, and if any other director wants to contribute some of their electoral area grant and aid, they're more than welcome to if they would like to put forward such a motion.
Thank you very much. Being good, Director Fall.
I just in recognition of some of the other comments made about this item, I know, you know, they may have applied in 2018, this group, but they don't apply regularly. You know, another option that could be considered is either they could apply again, you know, and make another application for next spring in March, or we could even contemplate a motion to, you know, ensure there's money pre-approved for next year. We've done that in the past. So those are 2 other options that we could make sure some money's there. And I'm just putting that out there because I totally recognize, you know, it's a difficult situation. We always have tough times with giving out scarce resources. And I don't think it matters how much. I mean, I think it's appropriate for us to allocate taxpayers' money and then divide it up. And even if it's always tough, if we just kept increasing that to meet the demand, the demand just goes up and the taxpayers get upset. So we can't do that, but we could pre-approve some extra funding. You know, I would be willing to support that, but I'm just putting that out there, or encourage the Trail Riders Club to apply again. And then, you know, and we could maybe consider it next intake.
Question.
Okay, Director Gisborne, yep.
The question to our staff is, an entity like Trail Riders or any other nonprofit, are they able to apply twice and get 2 grants for the same construction project, especially after it's been completed? Or is that ineligible under our grant and aid policy?
I guess it's probably Ms. Greenan.
Thank you, Chair. I just would like to take 1 minute to look at the policy again.
Sure. Okay. Because I just want to say I love Director Fall's idea. I'm just worried. I'm just wondering how to get there. And I'm wondering if maybe a reconsideration of the earlier motion of the 6,300, or sorry, the 3,000, and maybe to have an alternative motion to say, hey, we'll give them X amount in the 2026 financial plan. But yeah, that's just my thoughts.
Take a moment here.
And I'm very thankful to Ms. Greenan for checking the wording of the policy specifically rather than
Corporate Officer.
They wouldn't have to submit another grant application. You can move a motion right now to have it in the 2026, included in the 2026 budget to be allocated in the new year. So it could be part of this grant application.
Okay. And
What does that mean? We still need to have the information from Ms. Greenan, or
No,
not? We don't. So we don't even need to have that information. Ms. Greenan, you got your hand up there?
Thank you, Chair, through the chair. I don't see anything in the policy that would preclude them from, applying a second time for the same project. And the main criteria is that they use the funding for the project that they've applied for.
Great, thank you very much. We can recommend that they apply again.
yeah, I can recommend they apply again. The motion right now is the 600 from Area B.
Okay. Oh, that's right. We haven't had the vote on that yet. So no other hands up. We'll call the vote on the Area B grants and aid service providing $600.
592.
592. All in favor?
87, I think.
597.77.
There you go. 597.77. All in favor?
Who's voting?
It is everyone unweighted.
Great, thanks.
So we called the question. Any opposed, not opposed, carries. Great.
Very good.
Resolutions. Financial assistance intake 2. We have item number 1. Director Elliott.
I would move that the board approve a grant of 10,000 to the Powell River Child, Youth and Family Services Society on behalf of the Foundry Qathet for the Foundry Qathet project from the General Grants and Aid Service.
Do I have a seconder? Dr. McLennan. Any discussion? Elliott.
So I've carved a bit of money off of the recommended amount because I wanted to add that to the 3,000 for brain injury, so they would get roughly similar to the trail riders. And kind of rounds the number off as well. I know that people are concerned about what might happen at the Qathet Hospital District in the attempts to get them designated a health facility. We talked about this at the committee level, and should that we don't have an answer about that. They may never receive that. You know, they may never actually get granted to be a health facility. So while that attempt goes forward, we can only assume that they are what they are right today. Should they become that and get funding through the Qathet Hospital District, we would then claw back this grant because they'd no longer be eligible, and then we could redistribute those funds or put them forward to the allocation for spring grants, or however we do that with the budgeting process. And so I think it is important that the region, the city, and everybody here support the Foundry, because we are in dire need in our community for services for youth, particularly mental health services. Our hospital isn't equipped to deal with mental health for our young people, and we don't have any facilities to prevent mental health crises in our community because of, you know, and so that they don't land in the hospital in the first place. So in particular, children with special needs struggle to get the services they need for mental health and all kinds of things in our community. So I want to put the message forward. 10,000 is very small compared to the original ask, as is a lot of the grants we give out, but at least it demonstrates to all other granting facilities that they are also currently trying to receive funding from, that we at least support a Foundry in our own community. And that makes it a lot easier for them to leverage funding from outside funding foundations, other granting agencies. And so super important that we grant this project some money. If they do become a registered health facility, we can claw that back and go the appropriate way. But right now they may never get there. We don't know that. You can't make decisions on the what if thing. I mean, we can go in tandem. So that's why I think this is important.
Okay, Director Lennox.
Thanks, Chair. Maybe a question from Ms. Green, and I understand the intent of Director Elliott. 10,000 would be a drop in the bucket compared to what they actually need. But my question is, if they were to become part of a health authority or what have you, I don't know what we would claw anything back because the money was awarded at the time they were not. So do you understand my question? Like, is there a clawback mechanism? That doesn't really make sense to me.
Ms. Greenham?
Thank you, Chair, through the chair. I would think that in this case, like right now, they are eligible, and they haven't started the project yet. So if they have the funding and then they become a healthcare facility, they're no longer eligible. So I think this is an unusual case where they would change their status. But I would think that, yes, we would try to claw the funds back because like I say, they would no longer be eligible if they become a health facility, as that, you know, when they're using the funds, they're not the same type of organization as they were when they applied.
Director Gisborne?
Yeah. This one, as a father, a little girl with developmental challenges, our community is severely lacking in services for young people. I'll say that hands down. The challenge I've run into is quite often we don't have community professionals, we don't have the staff. And funny enough, when it came to an autism assessment, we met the person who does the autism assessment up into the Plyman Community Health Center, and she went, I can tell your kid has needs. He said, great, can we get the assessment? She said, unfortunately, I'm not in the right building. That's our healthcare system. So I guess one of my questions is, will Foundry be the right building? But that's a personal question, I guess. I believe Foundry Qathet is, people ask me, like, what is Foundry? And I'm like, well, you'll have to talk to Child, Youth, and Family Services to get that answer. But to boil it down, my understanding is it's a health clinic. It's a health clinic for young people. Yes, we need it in the community. At the same time, healthcare services are ultimately the responsibility of the provincial government. I want us to be supporting all healthcare facilities. I want us to be supporting clinics. But the other question comes down to how much are we willing to financially support from property tax? We can support this motion of $10,000. However, over at the hospital district, when we look at their application, are we going to look at it as well at the board? We decided to give you $10,000. So there's some folks around the table that don't really think you're a healthcare facility. And that's where there's some, okay, we can give them the 10,000, then we have them designate a healthcare facility, but then we need to claw the $10,000 back. But then if that's the case, we still have $10,000 in the pot that we could award to the trail riders and the Brain Injury Society, but we're just not. Even though we still have that $10,000 that we can claw back in the future. And I have a problem with that. Our grants and aid are not a big chunk of money. So every dollar that goes out to various nonprofit groups, whether it's the Skeety Island Internet Access Society, like every dollar there matters because it's these small community groups. And I love Foundry, I love what they're doing, but it's a lot of money. And I saw the challenges that I believe council, and I believe this is coming from general grant and aid, yes, so that's paid for by everyone in the rural areas and the municipality. Whereas the municipality, I believe, has already given out, what, how many hundreds of thousands of dollars? And then there's also going to be the consideration over the regional hospital district to provide funding to Foundry, which would mean the electoral areas would be providing tax dollars twice, and the municipal taxpayers would be essentially 3 times. When we start getting into our 2026 budget, there's going to be some big challenges we're going to have to deal with. We're in some very difficult economic situations here. So I can't support this motion under these terms. I continue to believe it's eligible for healthcare facility funding. We just got to go through all that paperwork. We actually have to pass a motion at the hospital district that says, yes, apply. This is how much we want to provide the funding for. It's not what we did. We ended up asking for a staff report. Who knows? But yeah, I want to support them, but I don't think this is the way we do it.
Okay. I'm not saying, I saw Director Elliott's hand up, but I'm going to speak prior to that. You may be surprised, I actually don't support this. It's not that I have a problem with Foundry. I've heard nothing but good things about Foundry and what they're doing in the communities. But the last time we had a delegation in, it was discussed that we're breaking new ground here. Well, I guess they were at the qathet, the hospital district, but we were the same body, plus one representative from the Tla'amin Nation was there. And they said we're breaking new ground by even trying to have them designated as a health facility. So doing a little digging, you find out that the local governments aren't paying for Foundries. There's 18 of these facilities around the province. There's 13 on the way. But the general gist I got is that they're supported by, in our case, it would be supported by VCH, not by the local governments. So I'm not really anxious to jump in and do the work of the provincial government again. It's like another downloading, but here's a downloading that we're actually almost asking for. So I'm really hesitant to get involved in this in any way, because then I think that's more tax dollars going to this that should be paid by on a provincial level. And at the same time, then there's money that's being denied to local groups. I imagine a number of you, well, two of you at the table here were at the council meeting where $250,000 was awarded to Foundry. But at the same time, there were
Committee level.
at the committee level. Okay, thank you. Committee level. And there were 8 different projects that were denied. If you take the 7 cheapest ones, they actually come out to less than $250,000. So there's 7 local organizations, including the Friends of Qathet, which provide food and clothing for the youth of the community, and the Qathet Regional District for improvements to the Gillies Bay tennis courts, and the Cycling Association for the new trail improvements. And so none of these projects are being funded. But there's $250,000 going to Foundry, which I think should actually be coming out of the provincial pockets. So I'm not saying like if Foundry gets up and running and they have a specific project they want to work on, I would still consider it for a grant and aid. But at this point, I think I'm just being a little bit more conservative. So I know I'm not gonna. Some people will be upset with that, but you know what? People get upset with whatever decision or other side I take. So, Director Elliott, you had your hand up before you popped it up for a moment there. I didn't brought it back down again.
Yeah, I have answers for some of the questions that came up during Director Gisborne's discussion as well as yours. It wasn't necessarily a trade-off of the Foundry versus these other projects. Some of those projects were moved out of the granting application for other reasons. Like the clothing one is because that grant program is not supposed to cover that kind of expenditure. It's not a capital expenditure. It's not supplies for their operations. It's not, you know, something concrete, that it's not an acquisition. So that's why that one was taken out. The trails one was taken out because the community forests said we can do this through our operational budget. It doesn't have to be through grants.
We don't have to go through all of them. We can just understand.
The point is, it wasn't a trade-off for the Foundry and why these agencies didn't get their grants. We had actually more money in the budget. It was more to do with the criteria used to put those recommendations forward, did not consider the motion of council that said we are prioritizing these types of projects for this grant intake. And so they forwarded recommendations for projects that were outside of the previous council motion of what kinds of projects we were considering. And so that's what that was about. And so the Foundry is like a clinic with some additional services as well, including access to social workers and so forth. It's drop-in. It doesn't require a big waiting list. It doesn't require referral like every other service does. It allows space for mobile psychiatry, all the different services we currently can't even get in our community. It allows space for those people to rotate in for a few days a month or what have you. If they're in the area, they could book the stuff that they do. So yes, it is the right building for that kind of services, and it takes advantage of every single youth resource that might walk through our community to be available to youth during the time that they're there. And so plus the regular folks that we already have in the community. And it doesn't require an intake or gatekeeping like the current youth and mental health system does, because that's what they do. They do an intake and decide you're not sick enough, go away. It doesn't do that. So the Vancouver Coastal Health is paying for all of the operation of the entire thing. That's where they're getting their operational budget for. So that's not coming to us. They're just looking for capital investment into the facility itself. And that's what we do through the qathet Hospital District. That's why we're thinking that might be a way to go. Should that, you know, Director Brander says he doesn't think it will ever get to be a health facility. That's more of a reason to give it a grant, not less of a reason. Because if they never ever become a health facility designated,
I'm saying that.
I don't recall him saying that.
No, you just put words in my mouth. I just want to clarify.
Apologies, that's how I took what you said.
Say that.
Okay, well, anyway, you had doubts that it would make that because you don't think that hospital districts are doing it anywhere else, so why should we? Anyway, whether it does or it doesn't is a future thing that we don't have available to us right now. So we can only assume that they're eligible now and make our decision based on what their criteria is now. I'm not going to be going to the Qathet Hospital District and saying, oh, we gave them a grant and we now think they're not one. No, they aren't one at this moment. If they become one, then we have a new situation. I don't think the process that's brand new and never been done before, it's fair for us to assume one way or the other. We need to, deal with what we have, the reality of today. And so I'm in favor of the grant for the local group, which is Youth and Family Services and has been in our community operating programs for a really long time. And it's not an outside group, it's a local group doing that. So I don't know, the spin being put on it being something from outside or this or that or whatever is not the reality that we face today. Today, the Foundry needs to get support locally so that so they can raise the funds they need for the building, so that they can get the operational funding and do services for our children and our youth. And so I'm in favor of this motion.
Director Lennox and then Director Gisborne.
Thanks, Chair. It is a struggle with limited funds, and this is the game we play every time we go through grants and aid. But I actually appreciate what the Chair's comments that it is a Vancouver Coastal Health should be under them. So we'll see if they're designated a facility or not. I suggest that, I guess what I see with the Foundry project is they're so far away from their funding targets and that it's going to be a while until that is resolved, probably into our next spring intake time frame. And we would have an option actually to designate some money forward thinking for that. But I suggest that this remaining $10,000, if that's the number, could be used for the two other projects that the directors are concerned about funding now with the need now. We all support the Foundry. I mean, I haven't heard anybody speak against the Foundry. It's a no-brainer. I'm not going to go through all the points. I support it too. But I think that we can actually support all of these initiatives at the right timing point, if that makes sense.
Director Gisborne.
Thank you. I'm referenced, getting my pre-6-year-old an autism diagnosis, and they said it's not the right building. I don't believe Foundry will be the right building either. I don't think it'll be eligible. There is no other building in our region that is the right building. And I haven't heard of a Foundry being the right building to get a pre-6-year-old autism diagnosis. So I just want to correct that. I agree with Director Brander actually on quite a bit of this. This is provincial downloading, or provincial local government upgrabbing, I think is the term they use when you reach up to take something that's a provincial responsibility. We can choose to support these initiatives if we so desire. We do kind of create a new path going forward for future funding requests from other clinics and other entities that are kind of working in the healthcare field. I think that the hospital district can have a role to play. Just speaking for myself, I don't think the hospital district should get in on the same level of funding like we have as a relationship with Vancouver Coastal Health. When Vancouver Coastal Health comes to us, it is, ours and theirs assets at the end of the day. Like if we fund a new roof at the hospital, it's still on our property. This leads me to another point of concern that I have with the Foundry. It's not regional district property. It's not even, as I understand, like the Youth and Family Services owned property. It's like a private building that's leased. And that's where I have a bit of a challenge. And that's where I see it as very different from, say, something like McLennan, which is also being discussed at the hospital district. This is a question that came up when talking with Vancouver Coastal Health and other folks, is like, hey, government is kind of schizophrenic. You might have a new provincial government after the next election, and the new provincial government might just go like, hey, we're cutting all the funding, we're cutting all the services. And now we've spent a lot of money towards something, or a foundry spent a lot of money towards something, and if they're not getting the operational commitment, and then it becomes an empty building, because that's a big problem I see in a lot of our communities is you build a big facility and then Vancouver Coastal Health, just like our hydrotherapy pool, says, well, we're not staffing it anymore. And then in the end, they come back and say, yeah, we need money to rip it out. That's a concern I have with Foundry as a project in whole. Something goes wrong or something just, they stop getting their funding. Whose assets do they fall into the hands of? The nice thing about the previous motion in relation to trail riders is if, for example, trail riders stops existing, it's regional district park. So we do have a way to kind of hold on to the asset. I think this is something that we should consider, but I think we should consider it in the spring intake after the regional hospital district has come back with an actual report and made a decision. Because when we get to the hospital district, if we pass this motion, the hospital district can say, we think you're a healthcare facility, but the regional district doesn't think you are. Because if we give this 10,000, we're essentially saying, well, in alignment with our policy, we don't consider you to be a healthcare facility. Closes the door.
Okay. I'm not seeing any other hands, so we'll vote on the motion that is for $10,000 for the Powell River Child Youth and Family Services Society. All in favor? 2 in favor. Opposed? So we have Dr. Dowd is in favor, so
Passes.
it passes. Oh, it is a
Thank you, Director Dowd.
okay. Moving on to the
We
second
just
act.
needed to record who was opposed to that.
Did that pass or not?
It passed because
Because we had
Director Elliott voted in
Dowd,
favor.
Director Elliott, and then yourself, and I think Director Fall. I can't remember if Director Fall voted in favor.
Who was against?
I was against. I was on the fence, but I voted against.
Okay,
So
yeah, so
Thank you, Chair.
A, B, C, and E were against. Okay, so moving on to
Was that, that failed then? That
No,
one.
it passed. It's a weighted vote.
Directors Doubt and Elliott and
Carries.
yourself.
Yeah, it's up to those two.
Chair.
Yes,
Thank you. For your information, I believe that there is, and $3,992.27.
thank you very much. Director Elliott,
I'd like to move that the board approve a grant of $3,992.27 for the Powell River Brain Injury Society for the Empowering Recovery Program from grants in aid, general grants in aid service.
I'll second that.
okay, seconded, any discussion? Director Fall,
Just briefly, and I appreciate all the discussions. They're tough decisions we're making, so we have to find ways to divide the money up. And at the finance committee, the consideration was actually from the electoral areas A to E, A to D, not including E. So while E, area E is now would contribute with this, I'm in support of that, but I also recognize and acknowledge that this will include support from this City of Powell River residents, and I know they're contributing in other ways. So I just want to acknowledge that this is a kind of compromise position already from what was considered before. That was on the table in terms of where the funding would come from, because the previous motions, there's no more money. Area B grant and aid is nothing left. So unless the other electoral area directors would want to contribute without area B, that doesn't work. So I think this is a reasonable middle ground. It's a bit of money coming from everywhere, and I think the society could use it. And I appreciate the comments by Director Elliott. I look back at the application and it is pretty clear what it's for, and she articulated it well. Thank you.
okay, thanks. Seeing no other hands, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much. Moving on to bylaws, as there are no reports. Would you like to read that out, please? Anybody?
So moved.
No, we
We have to read this one out.
I move that the board give first and second reading to Qathet Regional District Cemetery Regulation Amendment Bylaw number 511.13.
Seconded by Director Lennox. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
I move that the board give third reading of Qathet Regional District Cemetery Regulation Amendment Bylaw number 511.13.
Seconded by Director Lennox. Any discussion? None, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
And I move that the board adopt Qathet Regional District Cemetery Regulation Amendment Bylaw number 511.13.
Seconded by Director Lennox. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And new business, letter of support for UBCM's response to Bill M216 Professional Reliance Act. How do we wish to proceed? Anyone? Director McCormick?
I guess I would move that we send a letter objecting to,
We have
Well, that's the.
sorry, what's the motion? What's on the table?
there is a recommendation in the package.
Okay, I
15.1.
don't have that.
Oh, it's quite long. I can read it out, though, that the board send a letter to the province expressing support for the concerns raised by UBCM regarding Bill M216. Does that kind of satisfy what you?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's it. That's fine. Yeah, then I'd be happy to move that.
okay. Seconded by Director Gisborne. Any discussion? Directors Lennox and then Gisborne.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and maybe for staff, Ms. Rodden, we've had some discussions on relying on engineering reports, even when it relates to things like water studies or slope stability studies, where I'm going with this, and that we do rely on these studies. So, if, and I don't think this legislation is passed yet, but if it were to fail, my question is the same. Like, we want to be able to rely on these reports, and I see this as and probably for more city related, where they have requirements to have that peer review, but some of our constituents feel that we need to do peer reviews. So I think you understand my question. Does it hamper us in any way if this legislation were to pass or not pass, I guess is my.
Ms. Rodden?
Through the chair. First of all, I just want to admit, I am in no way an expert on this
Sure.
proposed bill. However, I did hear concerns expressed by lawyers from Young Anderson at the annual law seminar last Friday. Concerns about this bill, if it becomes law, it will slow down permitting and the unintended consequence will have impact small local governments that don't have the capacity and can't afford some of the requirements. But, and I've seen a lot of correspondences from Planning Institute of BC, Regional District Central Okanagan, Regional District of North Okanagan, all of which have done pretty comprehensive analysis and come up with different concerns. And in talking with the corporate officer, it made sense to just align the opposition with UBCM. They've done a lot of
That's what I
work.
was going to say, UBCM as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
You.
And just, really, the motion also includes requesting meaningful consultation with local government so that all these unintended consequences can be explored before it becomes law.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other hand, Director Gisborne, and oh boy, everybody's jumping in. Okay, so we got Gisborne, Elliott, Dowd, McCormick. Paul, you want to round the whole thing out here, or no, you're good?
Sure. Yeah, I have a couple of comments. Might as well add it up if we're gonna do a full round.
You're almost gone, but
Anyway.
yeah. Okay, so go ahead, Director Gisborne. Let's be efficient here.
Professional, how to get you to the ferry.
Be efficient with our comments. Then we'll
Yeah. When I first heard, though the province is considering, relying on professionals to, do all this stuff, I was like, oh, that sounds, very much like septic field approvals and so on and so forth. But then I started actually digging into what this Professional Reliance Act says, and it makes me really maybe putting on my tinfoil hat. This is a private member's bill from the governing party, which is just, it's weird. It's usually a private member's bill comes from someone on the opposition. So it's like, why wouldn't this be coming from a ministry? Like that's usually what happens when party in power wants to see something moved forward. The minister hands it to the ministry takes a look at all the different parameters, and then it gets proposed as potential legislation. This didn't go through those channels. And just like reading one of this is, a local government may not require a peer review of a submission that has been certified by a PGA professional unless specifically authorized by the superintendent. You know, sometimes I ask for a second opinion when it comes to my own doctor. Very rarely, but you know, so what, like the local government can ask for a second opinion? Yeah, sorry, there is I got some real problems with this legislation, and it's not going through the proper channels. And if we want to send, you know, our opposition, rather than it being like, oh, this is coming from the Ministry of Housing, let's reach out to the staff of the Ministry of Housing. What, should we all contact George Anderson specifically? What's his cell phone number? This is not how the provincial government is supposed to be proposing legislation that dramatically impacts local governments. Sorry, that's it.
Okay, Director Elliott.
I'm not entirely sure how this changes the building code, which kind of rules how we do permitting. And the building code specifically talks about when a building inspector is required to inspect stuff. If this is attempting to remove the need for building inspectors at all the various points within the building code, what they need is not a new bill. They need to change the building code. And so I don't understand how those work together. Or does M216 modify the building code, or is it a brand new piece of legislation? And so I think it's probably a good idea to slow this down, get better consultation, and make sure they're going about it the right way. I do see benefits in streamlining some of the building code requirements that are slowing down things. Whether this is the exact right way to do that, then I don't know. Right now, the current building code is onerous on small communities because they're required to do as much building inspections and so forth as the bigger communities, with sometimes a lesser ability to hang on to those professionals because they don't have the necessarily the amount of work required for a full-time building inspector. And then replacing them in small remote communities if they happen to retire or leave is also very hard. And so then when you don't have one, you can't approve any buildings that are under construction. And then you have to contract them in to do that. And so that can be difficult. And so I can see a role for professional reliance in some cases, but I think this is going too fast without a lot of questions around how does it work with the liability part, and who takes that on, or is there like what that question has to be crystal clear. So
Okay, just for maybe efficiency's sake, we've had a couple of people at the pro mic. Is there anybody that's at the con mic? Because if not, then
I'm kind of leaning towards streamlining, but not this way.
Is anybody speaking against the motion? And if not, should we call the vote? Okay, let's call the vote. All in favor? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Question period.
I almost want to be in favor.
Hello, Chair Galinsky from the Peak here.
Hi, Paul.
Thank you for carrying on and running a good meeting. My question is with regard to item 12.1.1, which was the foundry. I didn't catch the vote, and I'm hoping that the corporate officer can help me out there, Chair.
He can. You want to do it now, or just email Mr. Galinsky?
Thank you, Chair. The vote passed, and there were 4 directors against. Director
Okay.
Paul, Director Gisborne, Director Brander, and Director Lennox.
Yes.
This was a weighted vote.
Okay, I thank you for that. And if you would indulge me, Chair, with regard to the Committee of the Whole, I had a quick question for the corporate officer. I didn't catch the surname of Nadine, the delegate, and I'm wondering if I could get that.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Sherman, spelled SCHUURMANN.
You want to just email it to him? Okay. Did you get that?
I think I did, Chair. Thank you very much for the opportunity to pose questions. I appreciate that.
Anytime. Okay, I think that brings us to the end here, doesn't it? So, yeah, there's no in-camera session and hence no rise and report. So we've reached the end of our agenda. Our meeting is adjourned. Very much, folks.